So we'll start this again. I'm Mike Ricksecker. This is Shana Wankel. Welcome to Inside the Upside
Don't
Down.
forget.
Ugh, the replay is gonna suck. People are gonna like turn on the video and be like, "What in the lousy?" Okay, so so what are we going on about here? Mike forgot to. Yes, I forgot to unmute. Okay, so is Shauna shaking her head? It is Shauna. When we're doing this together, you're going to see the amount of stuff that needs to get done to pull all this off. It's crazy.
And I will make a list, an itemized list of the things for you to check, which I always say, make a note, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do. Make sure all your stuff happens when it's supposed to.
Yeah, that was just well
Yeah.
because of the way we're doing, because we're using a new software than we had been for like the last year. We've just been using this for the past few weeks. It's a little bit of a different process. So, and now that we have the new audio over here, that's even made things a little bit different. So we're actually trying to give you guys a better show. We're screwing it up in the process. So, hey, your sister's in there, Sherry. So, hello, Mad
Sissy.
Hatters. Hello, Mad Hatters. So, what are we going on about dimensions in time? So, like I was trying to say, Shauna has some interesting experiences that tie into all this. Some of you may be asking, okay, you talked about time travel. Not exactly, although these concepts may be like a precursor to time travel. Now, a lot of you have been following maybe 6 months, year, maybe 2 years. I had a video out about probably, I think it was about 2.5 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago. I can't exactly remember. It was a while ago. But this is a concept that I've had for a long time, 10, 12, 15 years at least. And when I saw the movie Interstellar a few years ago, I was like, wow, this actually relates. This is actually a part of all the things that were kind of rattling around in my head before. And so I came out with a couple of videos that talked about these different concepts. So Shauna's going to bear with me here for a few minutes as I get into this, and then we'll bring her in to talk about how some of her experiences kind of relate to this. Okay. Tammy's saying she finds the subject fascinating. Okay. And Ether is agreeing to the checklist. So, okay. So, and I have the professor glasses on. So, okay. So, I need a blank piece of paper. So, I would have had like a little marker board, but I didn't have a marker for it. So, we all think of, yes, we're going to have visuals here. We all think of time as, basically straight, linear. I want a marker for this. So straight, linear, river of time, right? So everything starts here, works that way. This is the past. The future is out there somewhere. That's what we've been accustomed to for all of these years. That's what has been fed into our head. That's kind of how we experience things, because we don't ever think of ourselves as being able to go back into the past, and we don't know what lies ahead for us in the future. So we dub that as the river of time. We can't break out of it. Or can we? So my thought on it, just from kind of looking at the fact that, okay, we deal with spirits, we deal with ghosts. There's things happening here that we see from years and years ago. Why is that? So maybe instead of a river of time, everything like a particular location. And I don't know how well you can see that, which is why I wish I would have had the marker board. So maybe things are straight up and down, stacked on top of each other. Just take a particular location, like where you're sitting right now. And all these things are happening concurrently. So up here, we have, 2017, our current year. And maybe down here, we have 1950. Down here, we have 1724, whatever. Above us, and there's other years. So, yes, this concept does include the fact that the future has already happened. And if you've ever seen Predestination or the new series on Netflix called Dark, it actually works into a lot of those concepts as well. So, another type of visual representation of that, I have a stack of photographs here. Okay, the top is my grandmother with my son Cameron when he was a baby. So think of all these as moments in time for a particular location. Now, these are all different photographs, so they're not all for one particular place, but just imagine that they are. And that at some, for whatever reason, like an event happens within this stack that starts echoing. You know, maybe it was a tragedy, maybe it was an accident, a horrific death, whatever. Maybe it was something good. Maybe it was, you know, I don't know, a wedding ceremony, or somebody won the lottery or whatever. But for whatever reason, I'll just pick a picture out here from the middle. This particular point in time starts echoing, and for whatever reason, a point in time up here starts echoing, and they converge and cross paths, and they're able to see each other. You hear occasionally about, where you see an apparition, you see a ghost, but they look at you as if you're the apparition, as if you are the ghost. And I one of the other videos I'd put out there, I mentioned Kat Gash's book, where she has she's seen basically a image of a person, a guy, and he's up on a mill. She's at an old mill house in Ireland, and she's actually seen everything as it had been back in that day. So it's not just a person, it's not just an apparition, it's also the entire scene as well. But he's also seeing her. So you're getting an entire view here. Andrea Perrin has kind of mentioned this about being in the bubble. She's also mentioned about seeing like a dining room before her, and this is at her old the old farmhouse, and somebody turning from that dining room table and being like, "Well, look at that," as if seeing her from the ghost. So a lot of different things like that. And Shana, that's kind of why I think that you would be able to speak to this a bit, because you've kind of had that experience at Vandalia. So I've kind of dragged you into it now. So that's really like a compacted version of like the whole theory. So, but I don't want to leave Shana hanging for too long.
Oh, you're fine. Yeah. Vandalia is just, it was a weird experience all around from the get-go, because I kind of feel like, because originally I wasn't going to go. I didn't think that there was going to be able to go.
And suddenly she's kind of breaking up.
Things just started dropping off.
Of course, the moment you start talking, boom, you're sitting there fine the whole time.
It's probably my wonderful internet provider.
Probably. And there's Sherry in chat, Frontier sucks, yes. So try that again.
Yeah,
from the top.
No, she has to.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like the little boy that I see, that I met there, I believe that we have probably crossed paths before at some point, because the more times that I say interact with him, because it's kind of what I do. I can do it from the privacy of my own room. I mean, it literally feels like he's kind of like knocking, like, hello, I'd like to talk to you or whatever. Can you come here? And it's almost like I don't feel like I've ever astrally projected on purpose, but it kind of feels like doing that, except for, I'm definitely awake when it happens. And then I see him, but I have no idea if that's what he really looks like, or if that's just how, he wants me to see him. Like in regards to time, do spirits control how you see them, at what point in time of their life that you see them, or is it your own mind that has control of that? I have no idea. I've seen spirits that I know what they look like when they died, but what I'm seeing is a younger version of them. that I've seen before in photographs, and so I know it's them. But yet I'm seeing them at a different point of time in their life.
Right.
So.
And with this, and again, this is like really rough. You would be actually seeing them at a different point in time. Like maybe that, echo of the child is here at one point when he's a little more grown, and then maybe down here at another time when he's not as grown. I kind of skipped the whole dimensions part because I wanted to get Shana involved a little earlier. So, and Carrie had a question out there about, are we talking about jumping back into time or jumping ahead into the future? This whole thing is time all acting together, all being at one time. Just take a location. All these things have happened at one single point in time. Or not, it's not even a point in time. You got to have to kind of look outside of time itself, that everything is just, it has happened. Whether it's the future, past, now, it is already existing in one shot. And basically, the reason why I mentioned Interstellar before is toward the end, and I'm sorry if I'm going to spoil it for any of you, but the movie was out a few years ago. It's been a while now, so it's not like it's out in theaters. So I'm going to spoil it for too many. But toward the end, when they're in what they call the quote-unquote tesseract, he's seen all these different versions of his daughter's room, millions of them. They're all over the place, and all he has to do is kind of find the right ones. And so all of that is him being able to visualize time. And throughout the movie, you hear them a couple times mention dimensions, the fifth dimension, and that's basically what they're representing with that quote-unquote tesseract, is the fifth dimension, which is it's kind of strange, it's our 3D representation of time, which is kind of backwards because dimensions. Okay, first dimension is just basically a line, kind of like we've already been doing here, just straight line. 2D would be a plane, just if I had a single piece of paper here, here. So, a single piece of paper would be, a plane, two-dimensional thing. Three-dimensional object, there, 3D. So we've got all different sides and everything now. Fourth dimension is what we call right now time. And you're always, wherever you are at, you're able to see the other ones below you. So we see lines, we see planes, single, 2D objects. We see three-dimensional objects. And we're in what we're calling time. So a fifth dimension would be above time, and you would theoretically be able to see that time dimension like we see everything else right now. So that's where all that comes into play. So it's being able to see every single moment in time at the same time, which is, I know, a little hard for the human mind to perceive, but I think we do get a glimpse of that when we see, like Shana saying, the boy at different ages. So we're seeing him at suddenly, as like an 8-year-old or whatever, and then maybe another time as a 6-year-old. Maybe we see them grown up at some point in time, and it's maybe not that. I mean, there are theories out there that perhaps the spirit is showing you as the age that they want to be seen. Sure, that's a theory. But in this particular theory, it would be that's the point in time along the stack that we have accessed, however it is that we're accessing it. So, Ether's saying I did a good job of explaining that. Well, I hope so. I don't know. It's a hard concept to kind of wrap your head around. A lot of crazy theory. But and Shauna, I think, some of that was probably experienced on the boat as well. I'm kind of scrolling through the chat, see if I missed any questions. Where I think
that's what I was. Yep.
Yeah, well, go ahead. You want to follow up with some examples from the boat?
Yeah, because the first time that I ever saw Captain Minky, he looked exactly like he did near the end of his life.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next time that I saw him, He was wearing exactly the same thing that he was wearing the first time I saw him, only his hair was a different color and he had more of it. It was like he was a little younger, but it was definitely the same man.
Mm-hmm.
So, but nothing else around him was different. Like the boat looked exactly the same both times. So it wasn't like I was, lucky enough to see what the boat looked like then without having to look at a photograph of it, which would have been great. But yeah, so nothing else changed. It was just him that looked different.
Okay, so it was just him on his own.
Yeah.
Okay. But still, it could have been him legitimately at different times, and maybe it was just, his energy that for whatever reason was resonating, at the same time, you were there. So, like I said, kind of that, echo, and somewhere up here, like, I'm gonna draw it again on the other side. So, you're up here, and maybe there's a couple different times where he was on there, and they're kind of echoing a little bit, and you're seeing that echo somehow. Again, don't know really what kicks that off, but for whatever reason, there he is in his form at those different ages, and suddenly, where you're able to see him. So, Jen asks, what about deja vu? That's a good question. So deja vu, deja vu is usually, we're experiencing something again that we may have previously experienced. So it may be that same event kicking off a second time. You're seeing the same thing again that you had already seen. That for whatever reason, maybe the conditions were just right that, what I'm calling an echo, occurred. It kicked off. It happened. Maybe it could even tie into the stone tape theory, and then you coming back and doing whatever it was you did the first time around happened again, like perfectly, or at least near perfectly, and you see it again. So, I don't know if Shana, you've had experiences like that, almost deja vu type of experiences at haunted locations where it seems like you're seeing the exact same thing. That could almost be like a residual haunt, really. Did I lose you?
Yeah, it might have.
Frontier sucks.
Yeah, insert excessive profanity here because Frontier and I definitely have a love-hate relationship. Like, I love the fact I have internet, but I fucking hate Frontier.
Yeah.
With the fire of 1,000 suns, and I hate that there's nothing else competitive, something else that I could use.
Right.
That would even make it worth it. And it's just this area in general. So, as my sister can tell you.
Well, yeah, she mentioned it in chat earlier. So, residual haunt?
Yeah, there's been times where I thought that I saw that I was experiencing a residual haunt. And all of a sudden, it's weird. Like, I used to clean for the archaeology department. So I got to go inside all of their really cool, old, haunted buildings, Did you hear everything I just said?
I heard most of it. You're talking about working for the archaeology department.
Yeah, I saw my screen freeze up there. That's what I was wondering. Yeah, so I got to go inside all of their really cool old buildings, and they were all just super haunted. And I was cleaning probably the oldest one, the biggest one, and I heard someone walking around in dorms upstairs. So, but I had been hearing footsteps a lot, and so I always assume footsteps are residual. Mm-hmm. Until something else happens to make me think otherwise. It's like, oh, there's a footstep, it's haunted. No. Residual energy is not a haunting to me.
Right.
I mean, it's just lingering energy. It's a
It's just
haunting if it interacts with you, and
it's just like a tape playing
that's
over
my
and over
opinion.
again. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that, and that's my opinion. So, um, and so I blew off the footsteps, and then the full blown apparition of a lady had come downstairs, and she was noisy upstairs, but she was just silent in stealth mode coming down those stairs. Like I was backing up towards the stairs, which I never do. I never have my back to anything, and I turned around and there she was, and. At first, I thought it might have been just residual because, apparitions can be residual too. Um, because she wasn't even looking at me. And I was like right there in front of her, and it was probably one of the longest interactions that I had ever had face to face, with an apparition. Because she was just there, and I watched her come down, and she stayed there for a minute, and then she eventually went back upstairs. But while she was there, I was, kind of talking, and she wasn't even looking at me. And so I was like, well, maybe she, doesn't know I'm here. Maybe she was just the film loop or whatever, but then she looked at me. It's like I thought it was residual, and then she looked at me. And when I say, she looked at me, I mean, she was like giving a very solid eye contact. And I noticed another. I mean, Adam could draw her. I mean, she was just so detailed, so clear to me, including what looked like a stain of some kind on the side of her face, like handprint, kind of brown, and then she had a similar print on her apron. So I don't know what that was, but and then she kind of looked like everything about her was a little more faded than normal, kind of like what Vanessa was talking about, like if there was kind of a filter involved.
Yeah, like a sepia tone.
Yeah. Hers was just like old vintage photograph color, though. She's just kind of just a little more faded than normal. And then, so, I told her, I was like, I gotta go, I'm sorry. And really, I was just a little freaked out. I hate dealing with stuff like that when I'm by myself. I will just say that. I feel like there are safety in numbers, and sometimes I'll go anywhere first. I hate to be alone in a room with an adult spirit. Like I can do kid spirits all day long. Adult spirits for some reason. I'm just like,
Yeah,
so,
you seem to be a lot better off with the kids.
Yeah, and so I went out and I made a call, and then I came back, and then so she was upstairs, and then so I started cleaning again. I told her if you could just stay up there, while I'm cleaning, and not come down till I'm done, and every time I would stop to like take a little break, I'd hear her coming for those stairs, and I'm like, no, I'm not done, no. And I never cleaned so fast in my life, and I got there. So, yeah. So I don't know, it switched from, I don't know if it started out, as an intelligent, it was intelligent, but all of a sudden she couldn't see me, and then all of a sudden she looked right at me. So, I don't know if it was just like, well, the station is almost, tuned in, and then all of a sudden, clarity, and then she was looking at me. So, I don't know. I was just like, well, I hear this girl, but I don't see her, and then all of a sudden, oh, there she is. So just waiting for the veil, the layer to be kind of where it's supposed to be, and then all of a sudden there she is. So creepy.
And yes, we do know that Shauna's sound went a little weird. You can blame Frontier for that. There's not a lot we can do with it. It just is what it is. So Ether Shadow had an interesting comment up here. She says, I suppose when I am in OBE, my ethereal spirit is experiencing 5 dimensions to its truest reality as I know or understand it to be. So, my question with that is, I mean, Ether, I know there's a bit of a delay here. 20 to 30 seconds. You have to kind of understand that. So, is time just completely stopped for you? Is it moving at all? Do you see other frames of time at all, or is it just because a lot of the stories that I hear about like astral projection and all that is time is still moving, and you need to eventually get back to your body and wake up and all that, and you're able to move around, but it's only basically one world. I guess you can go off planet and things like that, but you're still essentially in one time. So I'd love to get a little more feedback on that. So, and anybody else in here? Yeah, Carrie, I didn't see whatever comment that you were making. I did not get a notification that to show or deny whatever it was. So, yes, fungi, Frontier strikes again. So, and Sean Gilmore had a question about losing time while driving. Like, it should have been, or it seems like it was 5 minutes and it was really an hour and things like that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
We've got a good like that. I forgot at Mineral Springs because that place just sucks up time. Like you think you're there for like 30 minutes and like 5 hours passed. It is just...
It goes by
time just
quick.
Once the lower, like to me, the lower down I go in that building, the faster it goes. And I don't know what's up with that, but it just seems like crazy.
Yeah, and
I don't know how that works.
Yeah, and you guys were kind of a witness to that back at, what was it, beginning of December, where we did those couple of live investigations. And we went live from Facebook. And then we decided to go live from Periscope. And thank you over there in Periscope for the hearts. And then we were going to go live again from YouTube. We went live from YouTube. Then we went live from Periscope. And then we went back to YouTube. Now, we had blocked out like a good, 5-6 hours, something like that.
Yeah.
We did, a 1 hour live from up in Pearl's room. And then we went downstairs to recharge the phone, which the phone does not take all that long to recharge. And then we went and did a half hour in Periscope. And then we were like, okay, so let's go ahead and do, some more on YouTube. And we're looking at the time. It's like, oh my gosh, we have less than a half an hour. It just was gone. So really kind of strange how that happens sometimes. You hear with the driving, you hear alien abductions mixed in there. And, I'm not saying it's aliens. It's aliens. No, but it's a very interesting idea, and it could be with a place like Mineral Springs, since we've tapped into the earth, and the well's been filled in, but it's essentially still a gaping hole down there into where the well had been. That maybe it's tapped into some of that energy to really screw with time there. So, from X Group Home Kid, doesn't time change depending on where you are in the atmosphere? I got. You mean by atmosphere? You mean by atmospheric pressure? You mean by like the date timeline? I guess I'm not quite understanding in the atmosphere. And I guess there's a follow-up. Haven't been able to slow down time in a lab. There's, again, theories about a black hole. And as you get closer to a black hole, which is basically spinning energy, that time changes around that black hole. So there's that. And that's a lot of what Interstellar was based on, was that, as you got, closer to these objects, or even got down to a planet, and time was working differently, that when you came back up, a different amount of time had passed. So I'm kind of interested if Ether had responded to my previous question. So Okay, Ether says yes, I can go anywhere I want to go, and the only thing that holds me back is fear. So interesting. So you could pop back into another time. So you could go back to the 1800s, 1500s. You could go ahead then as well. Yes. So I'll throw that out there too. We'll have an interesting conversation going back and forth here through the chat. And I got to hit the show button because Tammy Heisman says this shit blows my mind. How high up from the Earth does time change? Due to gravity, technically, it could, but those orbiting are essentially experiencing every second and hour as we are, but because they're orbiting and having to re-enter at different points, I'm not sure how much time they really lose up there. I mean, that's got to be some hella jet lag. But they're working off of an atomic clock up there, just as we are down here. So, Einstein. Okay, Carrie Parrish. Einstein hypothesized that if you could reach the speed of light, you would be traveling backward in time. Einstein also said that time doesn't exist. So you wouldn't necessarily be working in backward in time. You would have essentially free reign over time. So it's just time. You have to think of it. It's time is a construct that we have created as humans. There's nothing in nature that created a clock. It's all stuff that we came up with to keep track of, the light. How much light we had per day, which we needed for farming. We needed to know when to plant crops, when to harvest crops. And well, you could kind of see, okay, it's time to harvest crops. But when the calendar got off, it would start planting at the wrong time. And this is actually okay. Rome and Egypt coming together. Our calendar right now is based off of the calendar that Caesar came up with. However, Caesar didn't come up with the calendar. He had a relationship with Cleopatra. They had a child, all that stuff. He got the calendar from Cleopatra. At that time, the Romans were working off of the moon, the 28-day cycle. And every few years, by going off of the moon like that, their seasons would get way out of whack. And they, couldn't quite jive up, the planting when spring was, when summer was. But it worked rudimentarily for, okay, this is when we're going to celebrate these gods or what have you by going by the moon cycles. So it functioned to a degree, and they would just make a correction every few years. Like, oh, we're off again, so, we'll lose a month here or whatever. But the Egyptians worshipped the sun, and they had based their calendar off of the sun. So when Caesar and Cleopatra hooked up, Caesar got the 365-day calendar from the Egyptians, of course, also including the leap year, and that is the calendar that we use today. So it's a function that we've come up with to keep track of ourselves. But that's essentially what we consider quote-unquote time. So I don't I don't know how everybody took that. Walk like an Egyptian. Yeah, there you go. So Candy, it's all energy interaction. Proof solved. Yeah, there you go. It's just all energy. Or aliens. But yeah, it's just what we are experiencing in the dimension that we are in, we have just dubbed as time, and because we're humans, we have to come up with a way to measure that and categorize things and be able to function. When we were hunter-gatherers without a society, we didn't really care so much about that. We didn't call it anything. So, but now we do, and everything's based off of time. So, Carrie's saying the clock is our creation. Yes, it is. So B3 Airspace has Egyptian god statues in her house. That's awesome. So let me scroll through here. Candy, damn it, Mike, I'm typing response. You're going to say exactly what I was typing. Well, sorry. And then that's back to the atmosphere question. Okay. So, all right. So what else do we want to do with this? Because that's kind of, I don't know if I want to say that's the extent of the theory that I have so far of, the whole, up and down. But let me throw this out there at you guys, because this is kind of interesting. And we saw this, Shana, you can speak from the fact that, you saw Predestination with me, and it's a paradox. And Dark deals with this as well, but it's not so much of a paradox if you take the whole construct of a river of time out of it, if it's more perpendicular, where future events can influence past events. Like something from the past can only occur from influence from the future. Now, the way we see a river of time, how can that be possible? And that's where we come up with quote unquote paradox. But if things don't have to happen sequentially like that, and something from the future can come back and influence the past, like Shana with Predestination, since you're familiar with that one.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Totally mind blown, right?
Oh my God, that movie. I sat there after watching it, and there were several what the hell moments throughout the movie, and it's like, wait a minute, okay, now I get it. No, that's not it. No, now I really get it. No, I don't. And at the end of the movie, it's like, what the hell did I just watch? Like that was the craziest movie I think I've seen. And I've seen a lot of movies.
Yeah. Basically, it's based off of the short story from the 1950s called All You Zombies, and they've renamed it something else, Predestination, because zombies today to us means like undead creatures that eat your brains. Although they do make a reference, or he actually says the line at the end of the movie, I know where I come from, but where do all you zombies come from? So he's referencing zombies as people that just aren't tuned into what's really going on in the world. And, this person basically is a recurring cycle. So he basically comes from the future, goes to the past, remakes himself, grows up until at the end of his life he comes back again. And so it's this constant cycle. And along the way, he actually kills a version of himself. But it keeps perpetuating, and he comes back and does it all again. So it's this recurring cycle over and over again, which in a linear format, you're like, well, how does the first occurrence of that happen? I remember watching, we read the books with my kids, the Harry Potter books. And in the third one, Prisoner of Azkaban, where, he first, he sees the stag, it's coming to save him. He believes it's his father. And at some point, as they go back in time and do all this stuff, he realizes, well, it wasn't my father, it was actually me. And when he realized it was himself, he was actually able to pull off the Patronus spell, where he couldn't before. But now he can, because he realized, well, once I figured out it was actually myself. Well, the question my kids always threw out, and then some of the different critics of the book were like, well, yeah, that's great that he was able to save himself through that, but that wouldn't have happened the first time around. It was like, where is that first time? Where's that first occurrence? And that's because of the way we think about time. If it's linear like that, yeah, the first time is impossible. But if you take that out and everything's happening concurrently, then sure, that could absolutely happen. So, Mike, read what Carrie wrote. Okay, what did Carrie write? 365-day calendar is Gregorian. The reason we have leap years is to keep the months anchored because the seasons will drift over time without it. Yes, that's true. They call it Gregorian. And yes, I did say that the 365 days are there to stop the seasons from getting messed up. I just went over that, where they were on the cycle with the moons, and it kept getting messed up. And when they got the calendar, they basically got the calendar from the Egyptians, instituted that. Yes, it's called Gregorian now, but it originated back in Egypt because they were doing a calendar off of the sun. When they instituted that, then it was 365 days. They instituted the leap year, da-da-da. I'm not understanding what the problem is here. So, back, I know they call it Gregorian now, which is a more European name, but keep going back. Per Zippy Davis, do you think some things we aren't meant to know? That's an interesting question. Because Shana, you and I have talked about this a number of times, because we've asked spirits, when we're out there on an investigation, how does it work on the other side? We'll get answers about what's going on now, maybe a little hint of what happened to them in the past, but when we ask afterlife type questions, we don't really get those answers. And so we've actually hypothesized maybe we're not supposed to know. I know you've said that a few times.
I can think of one time, it was in the cafe. Rita was with me, and we were talking about spirits, ghosts, stuff like that. And we were just chatting amongst ourselves. And on the audio, we heard, or we had just gotten talking about a particularly creepy night that we had the week before, and where it had some really creepy stuff going on. And then we were talking about how, we were kind of creeped out by some of the spirits in there, but not so much with the others. And then somebody, and we don't know who, but asked a complete sentence, "Why are you afraid of ghosts?"
Mm. Yeah.
So I have to think it was probably the same spirit, like within the hour where we asked, we were getting ready to leave our recorder sitting on the table and was going to walk away from it and just let them do their thing. And told, before we left, leave the recorder on the table, don't move it. And there was an okay after. So it's like, hey, I see the recorder, I won't touch it, whatever kind of come across as. But so that's been like the one and only time that the spirits ever acknowledged that they even know what a ghost is,
Yeah.
And we know that the goldenrod, Captain Minky was asked in an interview if he believed in ghosts, and he said no, which I think is a lie. But
well, I would think that, even if we're interacting with a ghost, that they would still, if they believed in ghosts at that time of life, that they would still acknowledge, I know what a ghost is. Like, let's say you're interacting with somebody that's in 1854, and they happen to believe in ghosts, and you ask them, well, do you know what a ghost is? They'd be like, because they're existing in 1854. They'd be like, well, yeah. So, but whenever we ask stuff like, like, how do you see? That's one of the. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I asked this question. How do you see things? Because I want to know if they see things like they did back then. So if they are actually seeing their old surroundings, which would kind of try to affirm this. But whenever we ask, we don't usually ask a lot of religious questions, but I know other people have. Or when they specifically talk about the light or going to heaven and those sorts of things that you don't really get answers for those, you know?
Yeah, and I was more than likely, I was probably with you whenever I did the line of questioning, not just how they see their surroundings, but, I always ask, can you see me? Do I look, am I in color?
Yeah.
Or do you just see me? Am I black and white? Or do I just look like a shadow? Can you see me at all? Can you just hear my voice? Asking all these, questions and, like maybe one time in the last 10 years, have I had someone, the color of my shirt, and, I don't think they're supposed to answer that stuff, but I do know that, and I don't know if it's like in Vandalia, whenever I'm in the room and I can feel a little kid standing there, but I can't see him, so I'm just reaching out towards, a sensation, so is it like that, for them? Are they reaching out to the same feeling that I'm having about them? Are they reaching out to energy, or are they reaching out because they can hear me but they can't see me?
Right.
Or can they see me? I mean, that's why we don't say talk into my box.
Right.
Well, we don't even know if they can see that box, and second of all, we don't even know if they know what it does or not.
Right.
If a place is heavily investigated, they've been around, they know what's going on, but don't ever talk into my box or
talking
even
about red light.
Just stop,
Yeah.
because we don't even know if they can see that yet. If you want to say who you are and describe where you are in the room and tell them that you're holding it in your hand and then describe what it is, that at least paints a picture for them. But don't just assume that they can see everything, because if I can't see them, they may not be able to see me. Right. So it's ridiculous to tell them to talk into something unless I'm going to paint a picture for them.
Yeah, and that's the way we handle it. Is we tell them that I'm holding this device. We might tell them a little bit about what it looks like, its function, that we may be able to hear them back on it, but we can't assume that they know what it is we're talking about or what it is that we're seeing. I mean, this person could have lived in the 1700s. They have no freaking clue. And that's another thing I think we talked about in one of the recent shows, is that some of these different technologies that we're talking to them about in their day and time would have been considered evil. It would have been considered magic, and anything magic would have been evil. So they would have been, these are witches, that are trying to talk to us. It's something to do with Satan, and yeah. So, you got to take some of that, keep some of those things in mind of who you're trying to talk to, and yeah, you don't know what it is they do see from their side. Is it they only hear it? Do they see something? A wisp? We don't know. So yeah, all valid points. Linda Lou asked, what about the Mandela effect? I know we just talked about that, a month and a half ago. How does the Mandela effect play into this? Well, that's a good question, because the Mandela effect is itself its own theory. And in that theory kind of incorporates the idea of parallel universes. So personally, I'm not so much on board with parallel universes. I mean, that would suggest that there are thousands, millions of me running around, and I don't understand how the soul keeps up with that. I know that some people have the theory of like the whole multiverse out there, that every decision you make spawns off another universe. Well, I mean, there would be an infinite number of universes, because not only am I making different decisions left and right, whether I need to go use the bathroom or make some eggs, I mean, that could have dire consequences on, my fate. I mean, seriously, you never know. But not only am I making those decisions, but so is Shauna, so are you, so are 7 billion people in this world. How many decisions are made, within the span of a minute that you make? Me just lifting my hand like that is a decision. It is going like that. The words coming out of my mouth are a decision. They may have an effect somehow. All of those little things. If I raise this hand instead of that hand, that's a different decision. So whenever I do this, each one of those motions spawns off another universe somewhere. What are you doing right now? Are you tapping your foot, scratching your head, blowing your nose? Every single time you do that, another universe is spawned off. I don't buy into the multiverse theory. So you may disagree. That's fine. So we all have opinions. So, okay. What else do we have? I'm sure I missed something. So, or maybe not. Oh, you guys are having a good conversation in there. Oh, okay. Okay, from Emma. What if ghosts are glitches in dimensions of people in their own time? That's kind of, really, what I'm talking about here, and I know this is like crappy, but this person here, whatever year this was, I think 1850 or whatever I said it was, they're having a glitch or what I called an echo, and then we up here are somehow seeing the resonation of that echo, or we're being able to see them. You would call it a glitch, like a glitch in the Matrix or whatever. Somehow up here, for whatever reason, we are seeing this glitch down there. Not really sure what kicks that off. Some people, I mentioned it earlier, some people may attribute that to the stone tape theory, where stone tape theory is basically somewhere in your surroundings, energy has been collected from a past event. Whether, I remember the first example I was ever given of it was somebody falling down the stairs and breaking their neck, like, at a castle. And the energy from that event getting trapped into the surroundings. And because stone, metal, all that has a different magnetic qualities, kind of like your cassette tape. And in the future, down the line, there's something that kicks it off and allows it to be played back, like your tape recorder. It makes a little bit of sense. It's kind of hard to be like, okay, what in the world would kick that off? Could stone really retain enough energy like that to be able to play it back like a tape recorder? Maybe. And is it just stone? Of course, metal has different magnetic qualities, but there's sometimes where these things. Usually, this is what we usually for residual haunts. But it's not always stone or metal that's around when these residual haunts happen. So why does it happen on those? I don't know. And it also doesn't explain, of course, a more intelligent haunt where something's standing there looking at you, interacting with you. But it is a theory that's out there. So I hope that answered the question. Scott Shablo, Einstein's string theories are vibrations of energy strings, identifies multiple dimensions of existence. That is string theory. And also, keep in mind, any of these, string theory, theory of relativity, all that, the key word there is theory. None of it's proven. So, there's certain aspects of it that we've kind of nodded our heads and say, okay, yeah, we buy this one. We buy that one. But at this point, they're all still theories, which is why we argue and debate about them all the time. So, I'm sitting here talking about, a lot of this actually does have to do with relativity. It has to do with, various dimensions. All that is talking about looking onto time from the fifth dimension rather than the dimension that we're in right now, time. Well, you'd have to buy into the concepts of those different dimensions existing. There's people that believe that this is it. you know, for dimensions. So, and well, it is actually it's almost been an hour. So we're at 58 minutes. So what do you think, Shana? You think we ought to wrap it up, get to go ahead and get to all the shout outs?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
I'm all tapped out on time, and I don't really, mine's just all ghosties.
Well, yours is yours has been ghosty stuff, but that ghosty stuff does play into it, and how we are able to see those apparitions from the past. Does that have something to do with dimensions? Does that have to do with the way we view time, and are we viewing time incorrectly? So, oh, Donna, okay. My first experience was seeing a murder in my old house, like I was there. Yeah. See, that would be, how does that play back? How were we able to see that? Okay. Okay. So let's go ahead and give some shout outs. Of course, Shana is here with me, so it's a little hard to shout out, but I can. She's right there. All right. So, Donna Gorton, thank you for sharing your experience. Thank you for shenanigating the chat while I had Shana here with me. Zippy Davis, thank you very much for joining us as always. Diane Hilbert, thank you for joining us for both sessions. Pungai Fungi, a lot of you were here for both, so I really do appreciate that. We're hanging in the whole way. Tammy Heitzman, thank you as well. Sherry Wankel, Shauna's sister, thank you. Ether Shadow, thank you. Mark Fiore, thank you for joining us. Beat 3 Airspace, thank you as well. Carrie, thank you for your comments and feedback, and not discrediting you. Just keep going back further. It's just the roots of where all that came from. You're not wrong. It's just keep going back further into the roots of it. Donna, I already got Donna. You get another one. Sean Gilmore, thank you for joining us, for sharing your experiences as well. Deborah Sosby, thank you too. And I got it right 2 weeks in a row. Candy Orton, thanks for joining us again. Emma, thank you for joining us too. She came in like right at the very end last week. It was kind of funny. She walked in and we were signing off. Saberwolf, thank you for joining us.
Don't forget our new Mad Hatter this time.
Yes, our new Mad Hatter. I'm scrolling up. I know our new Mad Hatter's in there somewhere. Scott Shabla, thank you for your comments, for joining us tonight. Luli Tubi, thank you as well. Lily has some good stuff. Tom McNicholas, thank you for thanks for the super chats first time around. Also, thank you for those on Periscope as well. There's Tammy again. Okay, where is our new Mad Hatter? Extra Poem Kid, thank you. Linda Lou, thank you for your questions too.
Lily Tubi.
Yeah, I got Lily Tubi.
Who is the new one? I think
it's a bit of a mix of. Yeah, it's a bit of a right. It's a bit of a mix of words and numbers.
Yes.
Pamela Rainey.
Veronica.
Maybe I'll just scroll all the way back down. Jen K. There you go.
Jen K.
Yep. Veronica. There's Veronica. There it is.
There it is. Right
M Labuda 61. I hope I'm saying that right. So, all right, there we go.
I think Mark somewhere else.
Yeah, I got Mark. So okay. I think that's it. If I missed you, of course, we're not. It's nothing personal. It's just I try to go through the list of who's there in the chat. Some people chimed in earlier and just haven't. So yes, the new Mad Hatter is M Labuda. Yes. Thanks, Donna. All right. So and there's Andrew Cox. I don't think I got Andrew Cox second time around here. All right, everybody. So thank you for hanging out. with us on this Tuesday night. Of course, we'll be back here same exact time next week. I see the hearts out of the corner of my eye over here on Periscope. So thank you for the hearts. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for hanging out with us. And next week, for Edge of the Rabbit Hole, we will have Sean Gilmore and Eric McGill from Ectovision Paranormal. We will be talking about the investigation at St. Joseph's Hospital up here in Lorain, Ohio that we had. We'll be talking about that haunt. Yeah. Shauna and I had a lot of great experiences there too, and we followed up after the investigation with EVP. So and we need to go back because there's some stuff we need to check out. So, all right, everybody, have a great night, and we will see you. I guess for Friday Night Ghost Frights on Friday. Take care.
Good night.
And let me get to the right screen.